Pope Benedict has suggested that the use of condoms could be acceptable in some exceptional circumstances, in what appears to be a shift from the Vatican's long-standing position. He's quoted in a new book as saying that for male prostitutes for whom contraception isn't a central issue, condoms could be justified to prevent the spread of AIDS. But he added he didn't consider condoms to be the way to deal with what he called the evil of HIV infection. Well, Jack Valero speaks on behalf of the Catholic organisation Opus Dei, and he was involved in the Pope's recent visit to the UK and joins us now. Thank you very much for coming in, Jack. To be clear, the Pope is not talking about the use of condoms as contraception. You know, there's no change of position there where there's an issue of conception, but the use of condoms by male prostitutes in essentially gay sex. I mean, given the Church's opposition to homosexuality, isn't this a slightly surprising place for the Church's position to change?
Well, it's not so much a change. I don't think it's been a change, but it's more a clarification. I think the Church never said to people who were having sex outside of marriage, don't use a condom. It was saying, don't have sex outside of marriage. So, you know, it was saying to a prostitute, don't be a prostitute. It wouldn't say, don't use a condom. So it's clarification. The Pope also says in the same chapter that condoms are not the answer.
The Vatican has never been as specific as this before, has it? You know, to talk about male prostitutes, for example.
No, that's just given as an example. But there's been no specific teaching about condoms. There's been teaching about, you know, the Church is against promiscuity and against prostitution and against gay sex, as you said. And so that's why it doesn't distribute. It doesn't distribute condoms, because it fuels promiscuity. It fuels the idea that you can have sex and so on.
But it recognises that there is a greater problem, that if people are going to engage in sex and there is the risk of infection, that, you know, that there should be the use of condoms.
Well, what the Pope says is that in this case, or cases like it, when a condom is used, even though this is a wrong action to do in the first place, it could be the beginning of a moral awakening, because you are thinking, the person is thinking of another and protecting that other. And you know, there's a moral consideration there at work, and he thinks this could be a good thing. There could be a moral awakening there.
Let's look back to the controversy when Pope Benedict first visited Africa, and he said, in fact, that he thought condoms could contribute to the problem of the spread of HIV. That provoked clearly a huge amount of controversy. Given what he said now, do you think in Africa, where many aid workers, were leading churchmen indeed, have said that they feel condoms should be used to prevent the spread of AIDS, do you think we're going to see people feeling now that this is not some huge sin for them to use condoms?
Well, in the same paragraph as he said the thing about the male prostitute, the Pope says that condoms are not the answer. He still stands by that. Condoms are not enough. There needs to be a more humanized version, you know, view of sexuality. And the Church teaches abstinence and fidelity. Not only teaches it, but helps people to do it in practical ways. That the Church saves many lives that way. So I don't think the Church will distribute condoms, because, as the Pope says in the book, condoms are available anywhere. But
I'm not suggesting that the Church is saying it will distribute condoms. I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah.
But do you think that there is this now in people's minds, perhaps a shift of emphasis? If the Pope is saying that there are some circumstances in which the use of condoms is acceptable, then the definition of what those circumstances are might expand.
I don't know if it will expand. Of course, it needs to be studied. But I think the people in Africa on the ground, the priests and nuns who are helping people with AIDS, are very good. You know, the Church looks after a quarter of all AIDS sufferers around the world and in Africa. And
but better for the Church to help
but
better for the Church to help to play a part in preventing that disease in the first place.
Of course, the Church prevents the disease in a big way by teaching abstinence and fidelity, not only teaching, but helping people to do it. And the Church saves many lives in schemes which don't involve any condoms. But in specific cases, I think priests and nuns do a very good job. And if condoms are involved, then they will take, you know, they will give good advice to people on that.
Okay, well, Jack Valero, thank you very much. And an interesting development which is picked up in a lot of tomorrow morning's newspapers, which Tim will be looking at in the newspaper review coming up in about 10 or 15 minutes' time.
Yeah, that story's made the front pages of several of the papers.